Hello, my loves. What follows is not to indict, but to reveal what has long been hidden behind closed doors and quiet pain. This is for the inner child who is trained to survive love, not receive it. If you feel yourself softening, shaking, or remembering, let it rise. You are not broken. You were built in a war zone no one acknowledged. This is not to reopen the wound. It is to name it so it can finally be released. And now, the transmission. Most children are prisoners of war. Not war marked by bombs and battlefields, but by psychological warfare, invisible, insidious, ubiquitous. This was a war of emotional landmines planted in the living rooms, kitchens, bedrooms of homes that were meant to be havens. Children were trained to read facial expressions like war maps. Children were attuned not to joy, but to the sudden shift in tone. A sigh, a slammed cabinet, a withdrawn gaze. Children forced to adapt to the emotional volatility of adults who were handed power. But this power was not born through wisdom, merely biology. Or worse, through institutions and roles that disguise dysfunction as authority. Some of these adults never asked to be parents. Some believed they were doing the right thing. Some even wore the mask of compassion while unleashing quiet devastation in gaslight-lit corridors of the soul. But the truth is, many of the guilty were once prisoners themselves. They were children whose joy was mocked, whose questions were silenced. They were children whose spirits were flattened under the weight of adult egos that could not fathom a world built on wonder. They were taught that love must be earned, that safety is conditional, that tenderness is weakness. So they grew into adults who never truly grew at all. They became emotionally stunted, spiritually severed, climbing social ladders not to heal but to hide. And now we live in a world run by those very children, grown tall in body but still trapped in trauma. We live in a world with adults who confuse order with oppression, silence with peace, performance with worth. And because their joy was killed, they distrust laughter. Because their spirit was never witnessed, they shame imagination. They believe homes must be tidy but not alive, disciplined but not playful, structured but not soulful. But they forgot. Homes were meant to be sanctuaries of song, not prisons of silence. Homes were meant to echo with laughter, with the stomping feet of children dancing, with paint-stained fingers, muddy footprints, silly voices, and sacred chaos. Homes were meant to be sacred playrooms of the soul, not shrines to trauma and decorative disguise. We were not meant to grow up hiding in corners, muffling our emotions, tiptoeing around unspoken tension. We were not meant to be raised by tyrants masquerading as protectors. We were not meant to dim, harden, and conform. We were meant to remember, to dance, to create, to love without fear. It is time to rewrite what it means to raise a child, to restore homes as sanctuaries of joy, to dethrone emotional tyranny and return innocence to its rightful throne, to protect the spirit as fiercely as we protect the body. Because a world that forgets the child forgets the divine. Even those not raised by tyrants are not always spared. Some children are not harmed by volatility, but by neglect, by a quiet, creeping absence that hides in plain sight. They are the ones orphaned by distraction, by adults always within reach but never truly there. These children are handed screens instead of stories. They are given entertainment instead of engagement, soothing apps instead of arms that hold, endless stimulation but no soulful connection. They are not yelled at but ignored, not hit but handed devices, not punished but placated with pixels. And in this new kind of war, the weapons do not scream. They glow, they chirp, they entertain. They lull entire households into forgetting how to play, how to be present, how to be bored, how to be real. These children are being studied, not by the elders with wisdom, but by systems that do not love them. They are being studied by corporations and coders who track their clicks, their impulses, their curiosity, not to nurture it, but to colonize it. These children, whose bodies still smell of earth and sky, whose imaginations still touch God, are being targeted before they've even finished becoming. Their innocence is not only neglected, it is being mined. Their attention hijacked, their wonder rewired. They are being programmed before they even know what it means to choose. Their instincts are being overwritten by notifications. Their identities shaped by curated distortion before they ever meet their own reflection in silence. This is not education. This is erasure. A soft extinction of spirit wrapped in plastic and Wi-Fi. And the adults, too tired, too busy, too overstimulated, often don't see it. Because they too were never taught how to be still, how to listen, how to raise a soul. So the cycle continues, not always through violence, but through vacancy. But just as we must rise against the overt tyrants, we must also awaken from the lullaby of distraction. We must reclaim the sacred art of raising the whole child. Not just feeding their bodies, but feeding their souls. Not just protecting their safety, but nourishing their wonder. And to do that, we must become whole ourselves. We must remember what it means to be fully present, to unplug from distortion, to choose connection over convenience, to trade performance for presence. The restoration of this world does not begin with better apps or better systems. It begins when we return to the altar of childhood with reverence, with joy, with uncompromising presence. Because to love a child is to protect the blueprint of humanity. And when the children are free, so is the future. Ashe. Amen. Selah. Let light bear witness. Let the children become.